fuck? You better pull over and see.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a
Speedrunner.
This is my story of how I set a speedrunning world record in Crackdown 3. Speedrunning, what's that? Well, I guess before I can tell you that tale, I better explain speedrunning first and what that means in gaming. Speedrunning is a pretty simple concept. Just perform a task as fast as possible. The task can be anything, from cooking to finding a Wikipedia page from another. Speedrunning is a subculture of gaming, started to popularise somewhere in the 80s. Essentially, players come up with set rules or challenges and apply them to a game, then try to finish those tasks as fast as possible. Runners then compare the times to see who can do it the fastest. In the early days, these times were held between friends, local communities, and publishing magazines. Since the late 90s though, the movement started finding its feet on the internet, allowing people to compare their runs worldwide. This grew the community, and once video sharing and streaming platforms like YouTube and Twitch opened up, it skyrocketed. The main categories of speedrunning in gaming are any percent, 100%, low percent, and glitches. These categories can pretty much be applied to any game or level. Good thing to note though, the objective of a speedrun can be literally anything. In my opinion, the best category is any percent. The main focus is simple: finish the game as fast as possible. I was introduced to speedrunning when my brothers and I would try and finish Halo 3 as fast as we could. Naturally, we wanted to know how fast it could be done, so we googled it. Now, I can't find the exact video that we originally watched, but we were equally intrigued and crushed by what we saw. The time was considerably faster than ours, and the movement was so well trained it didn't even look like a human was playing. Although I didn't feel the urge to start speedrunning then, I did grow an appreciation for it. And I often found myself eating a meal with my phone as I watched on while a speedrunner violated a Nintendo 64 or PlayStation game from my childhood. And at that site, I always thought, I want to try a speedrun someday. Well, on the 26th of June, 2021, the city I live in, Sydney, Australia, went into lockdown, and with my new spare time, I found myself playing through a backlog of games, which brought me to Crackdown 3. You play as a superpowered agent who works for the aptly named Agency, taking on organised crime. The game has a strong authoritarian undertone, because you might ask yourself, who actually supplied the gangs and corporations with the military weapons and budget? Well, it was actually the Agency to justify policing their people with super soldiers. The gameplay loop is pretty simple. You use key skills such as agility, strength, and firearms to evolve them to superhuman levels so you can liberate your city from the filthy libertarians. Once you max out your hero, you can play the game from the start with a fully leveled up super soldier. This is called New Game Plus and is how I conducted my speedrun. Crackdown 1 was my first ever Xbox 360 game, and I loved it. I used to boot up the 360, plug in my USB which had the 20 hottest R&B songs from 2007 on it, put them on repeat, and play this game for hours. I lost weekends to this thing. So naturally, it was quite comforting playing Crackdown 3 with the current state of the world. But before I knew it, the final boss was dead and I was still keen to keep playing. So I started messing around to see how fast I could finish the game and find all the collectibles. While YouTubing where some particularly well hidden collectibles were, I saw a video labelled Crackdown 3, any percent, New Game Plus, Rookie Solo Speedrun in 5 minutes and 11 seconds. Well, while scrolling around, I had actually completed the game a little faster than 5 minutes and 11 seconds, with a time of 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Now, this got me a little bit prematurely excited, if you will, so I hit up speedrun.com to see what the world record really was and if it in fact was so slow. I was met with a new time of 3 minutes and 29 seconds set by a runner called Son of God. This immediately trounced my ego and kind of put a whole dampener on my feeling of what I might get up to in this lockdown. But I was intrigued enough to click on the run and see how he did it. And with each movement and choice made, I found myself, instead of feeling like it was impossible to beat, more considering how I would do it differently and where I thought I could save time. and by the end of the video, I decided to go all in and beat this time. So without even understanding the fundamentals of the run, I downloaded LiveSplit, the common speedrunning timekeeping app, and got cracking. On the first day, I had almost equalised the time on the first segment, but in a total run, never really came close to the fabled 3 minutes and 29 seconds, often landing somewhere well into the 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So, I continued to refine my lines and fine-tune my motor skills, but no matter what I did, I could not get below 3 minutes and 52 seconds, which on paper isn't that far, but in an event that lasts minutes, 10 seconds can be an eternity. Then, on the second day of trying, it hit me. I didn't understand what I was doing. I was just following Son of God. So back to the drawing board. You see, to beat Crackdown 3 any percent, first you need to get out of the tutorial area. To do so, you need to take out 4 batteries, skip a cutscene triggered by going too close to a bridge, and kill a mini-boss. The batteries need to be taken out to fight the mini-boss, William Burke. After beating Burke, or Berkey Boy as I like to call him, it unlocks the rest of the playable area. Then you simply need to get to the top of the tallest skyscraper in the center of the map to trigger a cutscene, and then fight a cyber dragon piloted by the final boss, Elizabeth Niemand. Yes, a cyber dragon. Crackdown is an open world game where bosses are not locked behind linear progression or levels. The game instead holds players out of the final areas with difficulty of enemies. This is why New Game Plus runs are so fast, because the players are already equipped with the weapons, skills and gadgets to beat the high tier bad guys. So my first thought was, hey, let's just skip the tutorial area. Sounds simple enough. Only the whole starting area is enclosed with a white force field type barrier, which acts as a wall, preventing you from leaving. If you do manage to get outside, the character dies. So it's essentially a kill box. If you go too high, the game triggers the kill box. Okay, fine. The developers did a pretty good job of preventing players from leaving. Quick note before I move on. If there is any huge improvements to this run, I do believe it will be made with skipping the tutorial area. My reason for this is, I did manage to get outside of the kill box alive. Kinda. You see, games are odd with interactions. Now, I'm not a developer or even have a surface level knowledge of coding, but let's just say things get janky in games when too much is going on. The more interactions that happen at once, the greater chance of something that shouldn't happen, happens. If your character gets knocked by a blast or a strong hit, they go limp. While limp, I found you could pass through the barrier. Now, before you say it, yes, it kills the character. But my bright idea was to go limp, fall into the water, adding a level of interactions, hopefully causing some jank, and ultimately allowing my character to pop up on the other side of the tutorial prison alive. Now, I was just as surprised as you will be to know the character does in fact pop up on the other side of the wall alive, only the game acts as if you're dead and doesn't allow you to move. So, with that, my experimenting was done. Accepting that I had to suck it up and fight through the first part of the run, it was time to experiment with the second half, getting to the top of the tower and killing the final boss. You see, the 3 top runs all opted for the same mode of travel to the tower. If your driving skill is high enough, you can summon an agency supercar. This aspect of the game destroyed many of my good runs, as there is no exact promise the car will spawn how or where you want it to. What the current world champion had done to improve his run was, instead of grenades, he preloaded the character with an item that works like a grav lift. You put it down, it provides lift, which can be used to help you jump higher or further. He utilised this gadget to edge out the other runners in 2 parts of the run, when getting through the tutorial area and climbing the tower. My idea to improve here was to see if I could use the wingsuit instead of the grav lift, and basically fly straight to the top of the tower, skipping the drive and climb. So after the tutorial area was complete, I used the wingsuit to essentially infinitely jump. This is done by exhausting the jump thrusters ability, then quickly activating and deactivating the wingsuit in mid-air, so the jump thrusters ability is once again able to be used, allowing me to climb altitude without touching anything. This unfortunately turned out to be slower, but I had noticed that the wingsuit travel time in the air was quite fast. Not fast enough to outrun the supercar to the base of the tower, but maybe fast enough to replace the grav lift item. This meant that I would need to optimize my run around the wingsuit, which no one else was doing. I managed to best the tutorial time by a few seconds on multiple runs using the wingsuit and some well-timed super jumps. The only problem was, almost every time I did, I would then screw up in the second half. But within time, I was consistently hitting 3 minutes and 40 seconds for a full run. The last two things I needed to master were climbing the tower and driving to it, as once you were in the boss arena, it would take the same amount of time to kill the boss, provided you landed your shots. I had pretty much stuck to trying to climb the tower the same or similar paths as the current champ, but I could not consistently equal the same time, so I started running along the path of the other runners. And within a couple of hours, I'd gotten my time into the 3 minutes 30s, coming as close as 3 seconds off the champion. Now, I had the run, all I had to do was execute it. Countless runs died by me missing the boss with the full clip, getting hit by the damn car, or failing to trigger the last cutscene in time. But, just as I was beginning to lose hope for that day, I had this run. And with that, I had beaten the world record by 1 second, and achieved a childhood dream